Hey guys, what's up? FPS Aquatics here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how I built the stand for my 55-gallon tank. I'm really excited, so let's get into it. So this idea came up about a month ago when I started looking for stands. I had no idea how expensive they were, but when I found out, I was like, no way, I'm not about to pay $200 for a piece of crap stand, so I'm gonna build one. And I was like, you know what, Chase? You don't even know how to build a stand, so why even try? Because you're probably just gonna bust it. This tank would literally be filled up with water, the stand would break, water would go everywhere, I'd probably get evicted even though this is my house. It would suck. So I'm like, you know what, my uncle's actually a carpenter so he can build one for me. I mean, I didn't actually say it in that terms, but I actually went over to his house and I'm like, you know what, I had this really cool idea, could you possibly build me a tank stand? And he's like, you know what, yeah, sure, I'll build it for you while you're on vacation. I'm like, awesome, that's really cool. So it actually worked out really good because when I was in North Carolina, it was being built, so when I got home, it was all ready to go and I was ready to stain it. And let me be the first to say that it looks beautiful. So now let's get into how I stained it. The first thing you're going to need is stain. Now I actually went with a red chestnut stain because I thought it would look absolutely gorgeous, and it does. The second thing you're going to need is varnish because you're going to need to put 3 coats of this over your stain. Now for both the stain and the varnish, I would recommend water-based because it dries in 2 hours versus 24 hours, which makes it way better. I mean, who wants to wait 24 hours just to do the next step? I mean, that pretty much sucks. So make sure to get water-based for both of these. The next thing you're going to need are tack cloths. They're really sticky cloths that basically take off all the sawdust, which is also a really important step in staining. You're also going to need gloves because you don't want your hands to get all messy when you're working with this stuff. And last but not least, you're going to need a paintbrush. To start off this project, you're going to want to take either compressed air or an air compressor and spray off the entire stand, and then go back with a tack cloth to take off the rest. Now before you start staining, you're going to want to mark off anything that you don't want to be stained. In my case, the entire inside of the cabinet is white and I don't want to get stained on this, so you basically just tape off the edges. So you're going to want to take off the cap of the stain, insert it until it's completely mixed, which means that it's all the same color and there aren't like different shades. Now I do have to warn you that this can take upwards of 5 minutes, so don't get frustrated if it's not mixing. Now you're going to want to put your gloves on. I mean, you probably should before you start mixing because you're probably going to make a mess like I did. I mean, I literally spilled over the entire tarp, so that was kind of a mess. But I would put on the gloves before you start mixing, but just make sure they're on now. Now you're going to take a rag, dip it in the stain, and start putting it on. If I were you, I would start with something that you aren't going to see that often. For me, that was the back of the cabinet doors. I figured that if I mess up on this, it's not really going to matter because the doors are going to be shut almost all the time. Next, I stained the top of the stand because I figured that the tank's going to be covering about 90% of it, and it actually turned out really well. Then I went ahead and did the rest of the stand. It really wasn't that big of a deal. All you have to do is make sure you go with the grain and take a long stroke all the way through. If you take little strokes, there'll be little dark spots and it really won't look good at all. Once you have everything completely covered, which in my case I still had the front of the doors to do, so I waited 2 hours, flipped the doors over, then did the front. But after that, all you have to do is just wait the dry time period, which is either 24 or 2 hours. Just make sure to look on the can and it'll tell you exactly how long to wait. Next thing you're going to want to do is mix up the varnish. I actually went with an oil-based stain and a water-based varnish, so it was actually really easy for me to put on the varnish. So all you have to do is just take your paintbrush, dip it in the varnish, and brush on your first coat. Make sure to check for any drips. If there are any, just smooth them out and then wait for the dry time. Now make sure when you're done applying the varnish, you're going to want to wrap your brush in saran wrap or make sure it's airtight, otherwise the brush will get hard and it won't work. Once that coat is completely dry, you're going to want to take some 220 grit sandpaper, lightly brush over the surface of your entire stand, and then when you're done, take your tack rag and get rid of all the dust. And that's for your first coat. Now you're going to be doing this 2 more times, so basically you're just going to take your varnish, wait for it to dry, wipe it off with 220 grit sandpaper, and then repeat. So you're going to be doing all of this 1 more time, and then on the last coat you're not going to be using any sandpaper or any tack cloth whatsoever. Now if you haven't subscribed or turned on my notifications, this would be the absolute perfect time to do it, as this is the beginning of the 55-gallon tank series. I still have to aquascape this tank, set up the heater, the filter, stock it, add lighting, all of that awesome stuff, and I'm going to have individual videos for each step, so this is definitely the perfect time. In addition, make sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram at FPS Aquatics. I'm going to be posting tons of updates on these as well as polls so I can get your opinion on everything. Anyway, that's pretty much about it for this episode. If you enjoyed, make sure to hit that like button down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new. Like I said, this is the perfect time to subscribe. There's a lot of awesome stuff happening at once, so make sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications, and I'll see you later. Goodbye.